Welcome to Watchman Tales, where we bring you the darkest mysteries and chilling stories from around the world. Tonight, prepare yourself for 3 terrifying tales from the deep, treacherous waters of the Bermuda Triangle, the notorious Devil's Triangle. Stories so real, they will keep you awake long after the lights go out. The Curse of the Collier. The sea has always been a place of wonder and terror, but there is one patch of the Atlantic where the terror is not born of storms or rogue waves, but of an awful, invisible emptiness. It is the Bermuda Triangle, a watery graveyard where the largest single non-combat loss of life in U.S. Navy history vanished, leaving behind nothing but a spectral shadow and an unsettling silence. This is the tale of the USS Cyclops. In February 1918, the Great War raged across Europe. The USS Cyclops, a massive collier, a naval ship built to carry coal, was a behemoth of its time, over 540 feet long. She wasn't a sleek destroyer or a majestic battleship. She was a workhorse, designed to deliver essential supplies. But with 306 souls aboard, including her crew and passengers, she carried a vital human cargo as well. She had left Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, laden with over 10,000 tons of heavy manganese ore, bound for Baltimore, Maryland. Her final confirmed stop was the island of Barbados on March 4th. From there, the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Atlantic waited, and somewhere in that expanse, the Bermuda Triangle lay in wait, too. The commander was Lieutenant Commander George Worley, a man whose eccentric behavior was noted by several in the crew and later in naval reports. He was a difficult man, reportedly demanding and prone to bizarre rages. But no matter the captain's personality, the Cyclops was a powerful ship, and the weather reports were calm. There was no enemy submarine activity reported in her area. Everything, by all accounts, should have been routine, a long but safe voyage home. The journey was uneventful, until it wasn't. After departing Barbados, the Cyclops simply ceased to exist. No radio distress call was ever sent. No emergency signal crackled through the ether. The ship, the 306 men, the 10,000 tons of ore, all vanished as completely as if a colossal, invisible hand had simply plucked the vessel from the water and held it up to the sun until it evaporated into vapor. The search began, frantic and exhaustive. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Planes flew over the known route. Ships crisscrossed the area. They looked for the telltale sign of a maritime tragedy: wreckage, oil slicks, lifeboats, or floating debris. In the brutal math of the ocean, a ship sinking means something floats. A ship of the Cyclops size, carrying so many supplies, should have left a sprawling debris field, a chilling breadcrumb trail marking its watery grave. But the ocean offered nothing. The total lack of evidence is what elevates the Cyclops' disappearance from a tragic maritime accident to a terrifying cosmic mystery. How does a vessel of this size with hundreds of people sink in calm waters without sending a single signal? How does it leave behind absolutely no trace? The official naval inquiry later concluded, all efforts to locate the vessel or any of her personnel have proved utterly futile. No enemy vessel was in the vicinity, nor is it believed that an enemy vessel would have taken the time for the meticulous salvage of a vessel of the size of Cyclops. It was an admission of defeat, an acknowledgement of the supernatural. The theories are numerous, each more disturbing than the last. Some suggest the heavy shifting manganese ore cargo caused a structural failure, leading to a quick, catastrophic capsize that gave the crew no time to react or radio for help. Others whispered of a secret German U-boat attack, though that was quickly dismissed. But the most chilling theories, the ones that truly define the terror of the triangle, speak of the impossible. Some believe the ship was swallowed by a massive methane hydrate eruption from the deep seabed, which would instantaneously reduce the water's density, causing the great ship to plunge like a stone. Or others point to the strange electromagnetic anomalies common in the region, suggesting the ship entered a sudden, unexpected time warp or dimensional rift that ripped it from our reality entirely. Imagine those final, terrifying moments in the cold, vast Atlantic. Commander Worley perhaps looking at a compass spinning wildly, the horizon strangely blurred. An unnatural sound, a deep, resonant hum vibrating through the steel hull. Then, not a violent lurch of a wreck, not the sound of breaking wood, but an overwhelming, crushing pressure from an unseen force, a sensation of gravity pulling down into the abyss, silencing the ship and every man aboard with terrifying, clinical efficiency. A swift, absolute deletion from existence. The mystery of the USS Cyclops is a hole in history, an unanswered distress call that echoes only in the imaginations of those who dare to consider it. It's a reminder that beneath the calm azure waves of the Atlantic, the Devil's Triangle is always hungry, and its victims are never found. This story was shared with Watchman Tales by a dedicated historian who believes the 306 men of the USS Cyclops are still drifting in a timeless void within the triangle. Now let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by a former air traffic controller with an unnerving interest in the most famous aviation mystery of all time.
Flight to Oblivion. The sky, vast and intimidating, holds its own dark secrets. On December 5th, 1945, the secrets of the Bermuda Triangle reached the heavens. This is the chilling true story of Flight 19, a routine training mission that ended in a symphony of panicked radio calls and an inexplicable absolute disappearance that birthed the modern legend of the Devil's Triangle. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, powerful, robust warplanes, took off from the U.S. Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They were designated Flight 19. Aboard the 5 aircraft were 14 seasoned airmen, led by the experienced pilot, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor. The mission was a simple 3-hour navigational exercise. Fly east for 141 miles, turn north for 73 miles, and then head back to base. A piece of cake. The weather was clear, the aircraft were fully fueled. Yet, barely an hour and a half into the flight, something went catastrophically wrong. At approximately 2:15 p.m., the control tower at Fort Lauderdale received an urgent, confused radio message from Taylor. His voice was frantic, struggling against a strange, high-pitched static. "We are entering white water. Nothing looks right. We don't know where we are. We seem to be lost." The ground crew immediately responded, asking for a compass reading. Taylor's reply was the first truly terrifying moment of the incident. "Both my compasses are out. I am trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I am over land, but it's broken up. It looks strange. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how to get to Miami." But Taylor wasn't over the Florida Keys. The Keys are a chain of islands. He was far out over the open ocean, where the sea and the sky meet the triangle. The exchange that followed was a descent into shared madness. Other pilots in the squadron chimed in, their voices layered with growing panic. They all confirmed the same impossible reality. Their instruments were failing simultaneously. Another pilot was heard. "My God, all of them are spinning. I don't know which way is up. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should." The lead flight instructor, Taylor, seemed utterly disoriented, a highly trained mind unable to make sense of his surroundings. He refused to hand over command to the other pilots, perhaps clinging to his rank as the last anchor in a rapidly dissolving reality. He kept ordering the squadron to turn east, then west, then east again, flying in huge, confused circles. The base kept desperately trying to guide him, but Taylor's sense of direction was hopelessly broken. The last chilling radio transmissions painted a picture of pure cosmic horror. The sound of the pilot's increasing panic, mixed with the weird static that seemed to be growing louder, was almost unbearable for the ground crew to hear. "It looks like we are in a vast white ocean. We're all crashing into the water now. We are going into the soup. The compasses are going crazy. The commander's plane is banking. He's dropping fast." Then, at 7:04 p.m., the transmission cut out. Silence. The horror didn't end there. A massive PBM Mariner flying boat, a search and rescue aircraft with a 13-man crew, was immediately dispatched to find Flight 19. They too vanished. They were last heard from near the last known coordinates of the bombers. Moments later, a nearby ship reported seeing a sudden flash of light in the sky, a burst of fire followed by an oil slick. While this strongly suggests the Mariner exploded, possibly due to a fuel vapor issue, the remains of the 13 men and the aircraft were never definitively recovered. The sea simply swallowed them all. And for the original 5 Avenger bombers of Flight 19, despite one of the largest air and sea searches in history, no wreckage was ever found. No bodies, no life vests, 5 massive military aircraft and 14 men obliterated without a trace. Was it a time anomaly that snatched them into an alternate dimension where the ocean appeared white and broken up? Was it an interaction with a powerful, unseen Atlantean energy source, scrambling their instruments and their minds? Or was it the sudden, simultaneous failure of all known physics within the Devil's Triangle that simply vaporized them in midair? Whatever the explanation, the loss of Flight 19 remains the quintessential, terrifying example of the Bermuda Triangle's power, an event where trained pilots flying proven aircraft in good weather simply vanished, with only their final panicked words left to haunt our airwaves. This unsolved mystery was submitted to Watchman Tales by one of our listeners, and to this day no one knows what happened after the last word of Flight 19's transmission was silenced. Now, let's move to the next story, which was sent to us by a deep-sea salvage operator who fears the legend of the ghost ships is all too real.
The most unnerving mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle are not the ones that disappear, but the ones that are found. The ghost ships, vessels sailing perfectly, yet utterly devoid of human life. This story combines the haunting legend of the Ellen Austin and the chilling reality of the Carol A. Deering. Two instances that suggest something in the triangle doesn't just take ships, it meticulously cleanses them of their crew. Our tale begins with the American schooner Ellen Austin in 1881. She was sailing from London to New York through the turbulent Atlantic when her captain, a veteran sailor named Baker, spotted something impossible. Adrift off the coast of the Bermuda Triangle was another ship, a massive, derelict sailing vessel drifting silently. Every sail was set. The ship looked pristine, fully seaworthy. But as Captain Baker drew closer, the truth of the vessel was revealed. It was completely abandoned. Not a single crew member was on board. Baker's log noted the eerie details. The cargo was intact, the galley fire was cold, but everything else was as if the crew had just vanished into thin air. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no distress. It was an absolute vacuum of human presence. Seeing a perfect prize, Captain Baker decided to put a prize crew of 6 of his best men aboard the derelict to sail it to New York. The two ships sailed side by side for 2 days. Then, a sudden, fast-moving squall rolled through. When the weather cleared, the newly manned ghost ship was gone. Lost in the mist and the waves, it had vanished without a trace, taking the 6 men from the Ellen Austin with it. But the legend only gets darker. Days later, Captain Baker, still haunted by the loss, spotted the derelict again. It was the same ship, drifting aimlessly. Baker's crew was ecstatic, believing their comrades might still be alive. They maneuvered the Ellen Austin to meet the ghost ship. When they boarded it this second time, they confirmed the horrifying repetitive mystery of the triangle. The derelict was empty once more. The prize crew of 6 men was gone, vanished just as thoroughly as the first crew. Nothing but the whisper of the wind remained. Captain Baker, now terrified, wisely abandoned the ship, and it was never seen again. This wasn't just a legend. 40 years later, a similar event occurred that became one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle, the saga of the Carol A. Deering. In January 2021, the majestic 5-masted schooner, the Carol A. Deering, was found aground on the treacherous Diamond Shoals off Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. It was far north of the Triangle, but its journey had taken it directly through the heart of the infamous region. When the Coast Guard finally managed to board the stricken vessel, the scene was of frozen, sickening terror. The ship was fully stocked, its cargo, coal, intact, and everything aboard was neat and orderly. The galley was prepared for the next meal. The navigational equipment was in place, but the entire crew, including Captain William H. Wormel, was missing. The chilling details were immediate and undeniable.
All the ship's logbooks, the crew's personal effects, and, most crucially, the lifeboats were gone. This suggested a deliberate, organized abandonment, but one that left no trace of where the men went or why they would leave a seaworthy vessel on a calm day. The food was still on the stove, half-eaten, suggesting an abandonment so sudden and terrifying that it allowed no time to finish a meal. Why take the lifeboats if the crew planned to return? Why take the logbooks but leave everything else? Naval investigators tried to pin it on piracy or mutiny, but neither theory fit the facts. A pirate attack would have left signs of struggle, and mutiny would have left a new, living crew aboard. The Deering was a pristine, well-organized ghost ship. The conclusion whispered throughout the docks, from Miami to Bermuda, was that the crew had encountered something so profoundly terrifying, so utterly outside the boundaries of normal human experience, that they fled in the lifeboats into the vast, unforgiving ocean, choosing the known danger of the sea over the unknown horror that had stalked their ship. What force has the power to empty a ship, leave the mess of a half-eaten meal, and delete the log of the final hours? Whatever it is not weather, nor is it human error. It is the unholy silent power of the triangle itself, delivering ghost ships as a grotesque warning to any who dare to sail its waters. This story was shared with Watchman Tales by a family who was personally involved in the salvage operation of the Carol A. Deering, and they swear the stench of fear never left the ship's empty decks.
Which of these stories gave you chills tonight? Let us know in the comments. And remember, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Watchman Tales, or something may be watching you right now. Sleep well, if you can.